In the 70s, Don Bluth took a group of animators from Disney Animation to embark on their own studio venture to make movies the way Walt intended. In that time, they made great classics like The Secret of NIMH, The Land Before Time, and An American Tail. But the 90s were less than stellar for Don Bluth, because he created things like Rock-a-Doodle and The Troll in Central Park. And then in 1997, he made Anastasia, which is featured in this 3-pack, so ignore the other movies. Anastasia, which was more or less a response to the Disney Renaissance, which in itself was a response to the fact that Don Bluth had left the company. Well, it kind of started the chain reaction, which led to the Disney Renaissance, because he created competition, but then Disney Animation was better, and Don Bluth wasn't, so then he made Anastasia. How does it compare to Disney productions and Don Bluth's previous work? Well, let's find out. When discussing Anastasia, people will often bring up the historical inaccuracies. Not that I'm a connoisseur of Russian history, but I know that the Romanov family, which Anastasia was a daughter of, were executed after their capture during the Bolshevik Revolution. After this, there were many conspiracies that the family members had indeed survived, which led to many Anastasia impersonators, which is largely what the movie itself is based on. John Cusack and Kelsey Grammer portray con men named Dmitri and Vlad, who had connections to the family before their execution, and they're plotting to trick the grandmother into believing they've found the real Anastasia, but they constantly fail at finding the perfect woman until they find Anya, voiced by Meg Ryan, who is so similar to Anastasia, the trio starts to believe she actually is Anastasia. With this kind of plot, I already think we have a pretty interesting story. We see from the beginning who she really is, but she has no memory of her former life, besides a song and an artifact, which leaves the audience waiting for that perfect moment when she's revealed to be the true Romanov descendant. With a couple songs and surprisingly entertaining performances, this should be enough material to make for an enjoyable animated comedy musical. The only issue is, they don't really have enough of a story to fill an hour and a half. To make up for the runtime, they fill it up with a bunch of Disney-esque plot points. There's a romance between the two main leads, which is believable enough, they have chemistry and funny one-liners, and they seem a bit more modern when compared to other animated characters of the time. They have songs in the forest, a town that sings the chorus, and a slimy villain voiced by Christopher Lloyd. It's excellent casting and a great design, and he happens to be based on an actual person named Rasputin, who was one of the main people that caused the overthrowing of the Romanov Empire. However, he was assassinated before those events took place. In the movie, he's stuck in some version of hell, made just scary enough that it can still receive a G rating, and he also gets the catchiest song in the movie. My only issue with this? There's really no reason for there to be a villain. I know the characters need something to fight, and Anastasia needs something to constantly be chased by, which leads to a pretty nerve-tingling scene where she's hallucinating while sleepwalking on the boat. However, the villain itself does nothing for the most part. There's convoluted reasons as to why he has limited power, and for most of the movie, he's just absent. In fact, there's a pretty large chunk in the second act where I completely forgot he was even in the movie. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a villain at all, but they hardly developed him or gave him a purpose. It feels like they only added him because they had to. Because popular Disney movies have villains, so we need one too. And you start to see a lot of that, where it seems like they're adding unnecessary elements because they didn't have enough material for the movie, or because the studio wanted it more similar to what's popular. I really wish they would have just stuck with the central plot of the movie. The songs are fine enough, but definitely don't help to make the movie better. The villain song is a lot of fun, and Once Upon a December actually leads to a pretty awesome sequence, but I can't help it. I just don't think these songs are that memorable, and for the most part, they don't really do much to make the scenes more fun. When Anastasia is singing in the forest, it's just a lot of standing around and running, and without many beautiful landscapes or transitions. I suppose the animation is good. Bluth always excelled at movement and backgrounds, and here it's no different, but the thing that really throws me off is the facial expressions. Their emotive range is all over the place, and with this Blu-ray high definition, I can't help but be pretty distracted. Just how many different ways and angles can a person smile? This would be less criticized in animation that's derivative of Chuck Jones or Tex Avery, but even those animators kept a consistent character design. No matter how straight or crazy the facial expressions got, you could always still figure out who the original character was. But I don't think they got that nailed with this movie. Depending on if it's a close-up or a long shot, the character's face never seems to match with the previous cell, which is weird to see from a bigger budget animated movie. Maybe it's because this is the first movie Bluth's company did that consisted mostly of human characters? But I hope my criticisms haven't given the impression that I absolutely hate this movie, because I don't. I found it enjoyable enough, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And I can understand why it has a huge fan base, but even as a kid, this was never one I liked going back too much. And I hate to say it, but it really is because of the replication of the Disney aesthetic, which I have always questioned. I guess I wish they'd either do their own thing, or at least do a bit more parody with it. In fact, at times, I really wish Shrek or Emperor's New Groove would have come out before this, because it could have taken more chances with the humor and fourth wall nature like those movies did. I'm not entirely sure if that improved the movie, but with these kind of character interactions, I can envision a more satirical, humorous movie. I guess for what it is, it's definitely better than what a lot of non-Disney animation companies were doing at the time, and it's better than some of Don Bluth's other 90s movies, but it's not one that I really have an interest in seeing again. Thanks to Elizabeth for this Patreon request, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review. Ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thanks so much for watching this video.